Author Dean Koontz has written more than 100 books, including 13 #1 bestsellers.
You're incredibly prolific. Where does that come from?
The imagination's a muscle, partly, and the more you use it, the easier it becomes.
His success, he ranks #6 among the world's best-paid writers, has built him a stunning California home he calls Amazing Grace.
You spent 7 years building the house?
With carved bookcases in his library.
The woodwork here is meant to look like an opening book, the pages of a book.
And custom stainless steel doors.
These are all your books.
Yes, these are all mine. There's over 6,000 editions so far. And
In how many different countries?
38 languages.
Koontz has sold more than 400 million books worldwide.
When the day's going really bad and I can't get any good prose out, I come out here and stand in the hall and say, okay, I did it once, I can do it again.
He does it on an 18-year-old computer.
So you don't have email on here, or
no,
this is just a word processor?
I don't personally do email. If I do an email, I give it to an assistant. I write it out. I might make a disc of it and give it to her. It's a little bit
easier just to do the email?
You should be grateful I don't have a steam-driven computer.
Koontz has written suspense novels, thrillers, science fiction. But a few years ago, he wrote his first nonfiction book about a 60-pound golden retriever.
She arrived with her name, Trixie. I joke sometimes that it sounded more like a stripper than a dog.
A Big Little Life was Koontz's tribute to his dog, who lived less than 12 years.
The more I watched her, she seemed to be the embodiment of grace and more.
The 65-year-old writer rarely does television interviews, but he granted this one in part because he wanted to talk about Trixie.
I kept being changed by this dog, by her exuberance, and it opened my eyes to how much I'd started turning off the beauty of the world out of busyness.
Trixie came to Koontz and his wife Gerda when she was 3 years old. From Canine Companions for Independence, an organization that trains assistance dogs.
Yes, good boy.
She'd helped a young woman who'd lost both her legs before a joint injury forced Trixie into retirement. Koontz recalls a mystical moment with his dog when they were lying in the hall staring into each other's eyes.
And I said, I know what you really are. And she raised her head up and gave me this strange expression. And I said, you're not a dog, you're an angel. And she shot to her feet and ran the length of this hall and stood at the far end. And I actually had to get down on the floor and coax her to me. And I brought her to me, and it had put the hairs up in the back of my neck. And I said, all right, I'll never say that to you again. I say in the book, I think she was a theophany, an entrance of God into my life.
In many ways, Koontz's memoir is as much about himself as it is Trixie. He grew up poor in this four-room house in Pennsylvania that didn't have indoor plumbing until he was 11. His childhood was overshadowed by a father who held 44 jobs in 34 years.
My father was a violent alcoholic. It wasn't great having to walk with your mother to whatever bar room he passed out in it and pick him up at 2 in the morning because they called and, and he had the only car we had. But I was not an unhappy kid.
At age 4, while his mother was hospitalized for 6 months, Koontz was sent to live with a neighbor.
And every night she would read me a story before putting me to bed and give me an ice cream soda. And many years later, I came to believe that's where I associated storytelling and stories with happiness and calm.
In college, Koontz won a writing contest. He married Gerda, his high school sweetheart, in 1966. And after he sold a couple of short stories, she made him an offer.
She said, I'll support you for 5 years. And if you can't make it in 5 years, you'll never make it. And I tried to negotiate her up to 7, but she has Sicilian blood. So she wins negotiations. And
That's a pretty good deal.
It's a good deal. Oh, everyone in her family thought I was a bum. But her belief in me was really profound, and it always has been.
Gerda would eventually quit her job to manage the business side of Koontz's booming career. Hard workers, they never had children, and resisted even having a dog. But losing Trixie to cancer devastated them.
My wife and I couldn't hardly mention that dog's name for 6 months that we didn't start crying. I sort of stole this from Lord Byron.
In Trixie's memory, they put a plaque on their porch, and they've contributed millions to canine companions.
Uh-oh.
And now Anna, Trixie's great niece, is gracing their lives. But while we were visiting, Koontz revealed that we almost lost him in February.
And I suddenly broke into a sweat.
Do you remember passing out?
No, I have no memory of it at all.
A bleeding ulcer caused the author to black out.
I woke up lying on my office floor in a pool of blood with my eyebrow cut all the way across and hanging down over my eye. It was a very Hannibal Lecter sort of moment.
He'd lost half his blood, but Koontz says he never felt any pain.
If you've really got to nearly die, and I was told there were several times I should have died in the hospital, if you've got to nearly die, that's the way to do it. No pain, no fear, and a very quick recovery.
And the author of 100 books says it's given him many ideas for more.
Do you see an end point to this?
I don't think writers who love what they do retired until they fall dead in the keyboard. I nearly did recently, but it still hasn't stopped me.